Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
Shock you.
We've got Vince.
In the year 2099.
Right. Okay, welcome to the show. We are reading some stuff from the year 2099, but it was written in 1992. So it's not really from the year 2099. Okay, this is Spider-Man 2099.
Spider-Man 2099. What the shock is that about?
What the shock? It's written by Peter David, art by Rick Leonardi. How much Peter David have we read? We did just read. Oh, and I guess we should mention this as well. Of course, we're going to be going on to our long read of Avengers, the Korvac Saga. We're on issue 174. We were reading this because it had some art by George Perez throughout the run, and he just passed away over between the last episode and this one here. And Neil Adams also passed away. What happened with all these artists? So sad. I'm very bummed about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So had to mention it right now. So the end of this Avengers run that we're reading as well, I don't think it actually has any more George Perez left in it. But we've been reading a bunch of George Perez throughout the show. We pretty recently read Hulk Future Imperfect, which was also written by Peter David.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my segue back to what we're doing here. We're doing Spider-Man 2099, Peter David and Rick Leonardi. It is Spider-Man just in the future, like 100 years in the future. It was written in 1992.
Do you want to know? I did some research into where this all came from. So
how?
So Stan Lee in 1990 on Stan's Soapbox started saying, "True believers, we're gonna have a new future series. Me and John Byrne are gonna be making it." And so they started planning in 1990. He talked about it like, I guess, they just wanted to make like, futuristic stories. It was like, it's going to be super exciting. And then Byrne starts like, I'm making all this shit and I'm not going to own any of it. So then Byrne left it and made his own book, 2112 for Dark Horse, which Roger Stern recommended he go to Dark Horse to go sell that. So that was the original pitch. And then so eventually in 1992, they announced that they're going to be doing the 2099 line, which they said that fans wanted to see more like Marvel of the Future stories. They like Days of Future Past. They like Guardians of the Galaxy. Stan specifically mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy in 92
Wow.
as something people liked. And I guess Stan hadn't written a comic for Marvel really since like the
early
82.
70s.
I think he wrote like one thing with John Byrne like in 82 maybe, but
He might have done the wedding issue of Spider-Man.
Yeah. But not much.
But he was not a regular writer for Marvel since like the 70s.
So he started writing, one of the books was called Ravage, which I don't even remember the artist now, but it was a big artist.
I think
was it
I
Jim
read
Lee?
that.
No,
it wasn't Jim Lee.
Okay,
But I
so that's
remember because it was Ravage 2099, which was not surprisingly the bad one. Spider-Man 2099, Doom 2099, and Punisher 2099 were the first four, and then they had X-Men 2099 like a year later or so.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a reasonably big line. It's the stories of the future. They were trying to do this all the time with like, the Ultimate line. They're just trying to like create some cool new number ones.
Right.
And this just happens to be of the future. They tied together Spider-Man in 2099 that we'll meet in just a bit. Did cross over. He did have one annual where he met Peter Parker, but otherwise it was relatively self-contained. And then as Marvel was getting ready for bankruptcy in like 96, 97, they did a bunch of layoffs, including the editor of the 2099 line. So then Peter David quit in solidarity. And then pretty much the line just kind of died from there. And by 96, 97 was dead.
Kind of the end of it. They have one last big event where Doctor Doom runs for president of, I guess, 2030 by that point. That's the election year, and wins. Which I don't even think he's a citizen of America. I don't know how he becomes president.
Well, I saw there was like a puppet fake Steve Rogers clone that became president also. It looks interesting, and not really.
Yeah, he finds a way. Dr. Doom always finds a way to steal something, if that's what he wants to do. Just steal America.
So that's pretty much the history of to get you where you are. It's 1992. It's a futuristic story. John Francis something, whoever wrote the Factor X we just covered, he also wrote one of the 2099 books. So
Cool.
So we're
And,
in our
do you-
wheelhouse. Peter David wrote Future Imperfect. We're in the kind of like early '90s futuristic, looking like 2080
Yeah.
Judge Dredd stuff. Like we're there. It's fine.
Yeah.
Corporations suck. They
Um,
still do, and they will in
What?
2099.
And yeah, and we've got art by Rick Leonardi, who, I think he does a good job throughout all this. If I had, it's one of those common complaints of maybe some characters look a little bit too much alike, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like looking at his stuff. It's good.
Yeah, he's a little bit more of a cartoonist than some of the like comics artists of the early '90s, but I think it's fine.
There's some cartoony stuff that definitely comes up that I appreciated for its cartooniness as well. But overall, yeah, it's not like he's an overtly cartoony guy, but I do get what you're saying. He's like a little over the top in places, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just the way like his character design and stuff like that, like the brother to me is just like he's so over designed. But yeah, he worked again with John Romita. I think he was the fill-in artist for Uncanny X-Men in the 80s. Maybe it was Mark Silvestri, but whenever it would be one of his issues, you'd be like, oh, this looks like completely different because he didn't have the like cool style of some of the other artists. But I think his work is good. And Spider-Man 2099, I don't know if he designed it or somebody else designed it, but it's a cool design.
It looks like
It
he
is a cool
did. I
design.
saw some like the Marvel, not fanfare or whatever. There was some type of Marvel like promo book I saw, and like Romita Jr. did a pass on it, and some other people did. But this was, I think, uniquely Leonardi.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I hope he gets paid when like they have that video game 11 years ago now. They had multiple Spider-Man 2099 like appearances in games. They had a whole one. It was like half of it is Peter Parker, half of it is 2099 Spider-Man. So I hope he gets some money from that.
Yeah, there was the Shattered Dimensions, which was the 4 of them with Noir, and I think Ultimate might have been in there in 2099, and then I can't remember now the name of it. But there was one that was just 2099, and Classic Spider-Man was the sequel. And even he's the main cover character on Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. Like, it's weird.
Oh yeah.
Like 2099 is like all over comics and stuff. He's a playable costume in the PS4, PS5 game.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now that like multiversey stuff is like, I think it's in, right? It's like it's real trendy to be part of the multiverse, and
he's
the
definitely
future stuff.
He's in the post-credit scene in Spider-Verse 1.
Yeah.
Played by Oscar Isaac, who played Apocalypse in our last episode. But and then and he's going to be like a made part of I think it's called Across the Spider-Verse, is the movie that just got postponed until next summer. And then and then Beyond the Spider-Verse is the third title now that they've announced. So
yeah, he travels back in the post-credits scene back to the 60s and meets 60 Spider-Man in a great scene. So hopefully there'll be more of that.
All right, so we've done a lot of preamble about Spider-Man 2099. We have not even mentioned that he is not Peter Parker, which, like, I guess it makes sense, right? We're in the future. This is Miguel O'Hara, and I guess we'll learn more about him as we go. I don't want to, preamble him too much. I kind of think we jump into it. What else do we need to say about him?
Strategically, they said that they didn't want any of these characters to be descendants of the main characters because they didn't want to, get into canon that Peter Parker had a kid or that, like, the Punisher had a kid. They didn't want them to have, like, ties to them in that way.
They both have kids, Dennis. I don't know if you know this.
But, like, that they would have to have such specific kids,
Yeah.
Like, I get all that. That makes sense to me, I think. I think it actually, at first, I was like, I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I kind of like that it's a whole separate.
Who's this Miguel O'Hara guy? But I remember hearing about that like 20 years ago. I'm like, okay, whatever. But here we are, and I like him. So there we go.
I feel like maybe it's not until far later, but I feel like they retcon him to be connected to Peter Parker in some way. Like that's how the transformation worked or something.
That's how comics work.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, wouldn't it be cool if they were connected?
Yeah. What if they artificially gave Miguel O'Hara's mother Peter Parker's DNA so that he would be compatible? And it's like, yeah, what if?
Sure, whatever. That's fine. I'm not going to remember your story.
What if they gave him radioactive spider blood? What if
Spider
that's
blood,
what I
spider
like.
blood, radioactive spider blood.
Okay. So we start off with Spider-Man. He's like going after some thugs. He's getting chased by the future cops. There's like flying cars everywhere. It's like it's cool. It's the future. And it's, Miguel's been through a fight. He gets back to Babylon Towers, where he lives, which is a subsidiary of Alchemax, where he works. And he's got like a nice holographic assistant named Lila, who has some messages for him. And he's just like, he's tired. He just got back from being Spider-Man. Is it like readily apparent that he has just gotten back from being Spider-Man? I couldn't tell that he was actually Spider-Man, but I was like, do I know this because I already know this? I couldn't figure it out. Anyways, Lila has 6 messages for him because people are trying to get a hold of him. There is his boss, Tyler Stone, who sucks. There is his brother Gabriel, who is, like Chris said, a very over-the-top character design. He's got his fiance leaving him messages, worried about him being on like the drugs or something. And the other 3 messages are also from his fiance Dana, and he's just like, dump them all. It's worth noting these are like holographic. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned that, holographic video messages, so you can see all these characters.
Yeah, you see his fiance has like a black eye.
Oh, I didn't notice that in the hologram. Oh, dang. Okay. So Miguel O'Hara's boss, his other boss. He's got like a supervisor guy and then his like main boss. So Tyler Stone is his main boss. He's at work now with his
his direct report.
His direct report. Yeah. And I think at this point I didn't really 100% like click with me, but we have jumped into the past. We are now recollecting the events that led us.
Yeah, Lila's like, your heart rate is elevated. You have not yet made a journal entry in like however many days. He's like, all right, then I'll make a journal entry. And he's like, it all started a week ago.
It all started here. At first I was like, wait, I realized it pretty quick, but I thought, oh, this is the next day he's at work. No, I was wrong.
Yeah, it became pretty quickly to me when I'm like, oh, well, I guess Miguel's got to get his powers, but I just saw him have his powers, so I guess that must have been in the past.
I figured it out. Listen, y'all, I'm pretty smart. I can figure out
this is the early 90s. You got to have Batman in the first reel. You can't spend your time showing Batman beginning.
Yeah, and with cops chasing him. That's the start of every Batman movie.
That's exactly what we needed. So the boss and the direct report are both like, all right, you are like the best geneticist in the world, and that's why we have you here. But we really need you to start testing your stuff on humans. And he's like, no, it's not ready for humans yet. And Miguel is the biggest fucking dick in the world to his 2 bosses. They kind of deserve it. Don't get me wrong. But like, damn, the way he mouths off to them. I was kind of... I was pretty impressed, and also just like, man, you're gonna get whatever's coming to you. To be honest,
like he's got to be really good. He's got to be unfireable the way he talks.
Yeah. I'm like, I guess he is. He's like that good of a geneticist that he's unfireable. They're like, what are you gonna do? Find a better geneticist? No way. But they're like, okay.
He's like, we could even make someone have Spider-Man powers, and he's like, you can keep that book. It has lots of pictures in it.
He is just like a constant asshole. I wrote down some of the stuff I think later, but damn, yeah, real big jerk. So they have like a prisoner guy who is ready to be tested on. He still doesn't want to do it. Miguel doesn't want to do it, but Mr. Sims like, hey, yeah, this is going to get me out of my sentence. Let's do it. And they test some generic super strength thing on him, and it works. But then he dies super quick. It's like, oh, dang. And Miguel is like, yeah. Miguel says, I'm through with this. He tells his job he's quitting. And his boss is like, okay, that's fine. I accept that. No problem. Why don't you just share this drink with me? And he has spiked it with this future drug called Rapture, which is legal, but it is like the most super addictive drug in the world that bonds to your genetics. And that's why it's super addictive. Doesn't seem like it should be legal, to be honest.
It's, I guess, made by a major corporation, so it's legal.
That's how it goes. So then he goes home and he's like,
it doesn't even seem like it's a fun drug. Like, you don't even get
not anything. At all. You're right. It is just like a violent drug of like, you're gonna do this drug so that you can get addicted to it, and that's how I'm gonna hold control over it.
You don't even get to like no fun hallucinations.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he does have hallucinations though, so it's like there's hallucinations, but then it's also super addictive. So you go in like massive withdrawal immediately. So it's like, why do you want to do this?
Yeah. It's definitely, and like Alchemax is the only people who make the drug, unless you want to try and get it on the black market. So that's their way of keeping control over their employees. He like talks about how like, yeah, we have a few employees who are on it, and they're slaves to us because they can't get away from it. That's what you're gonna be.
It's like they're getting paid with things that only are in the company store. That's no good.
And damn, this stuff works fast. He's like instantly a fiend for it. He goes home and he like accidentally hits his fiance and tells her what's going on with her. That's why she's got the bruise. Yeah. And then so Miguel's like, all right, I got to kick myself for this stuff. He goes to the machine. He's got like his own genetics saved in the system. So he's going to upload like a save file of his good genetics back into himself.
He's just going to do like a restore. Like, I'm going to restore it from yesterday before I was addicted to drugs.
Yeah, which I think is a pretty good idea. Like save scumming your way through life seems all right.
You're like, you look at your boss and it just says auto save. It's like, uh-oh, you're about to do something crazy.
Yeah. So he's going to activate his machine on himself, but his like direct report, that guy Aaron, God, what an asshole. He's like, I'm going to pump up all the levels and I'm going to activate the spider program. Ha ha ha. And then there's an explosion and Miguel is still alive and he has fangs. Oh my God, what a cliffhanger. Fangs? Oh shit.
Miguel, he's like, I made the transformation chamber look like the movie The Fly, movie you should like because it's about a dirtbag who sucks. You're just like, dude.
They're very mean insults. Like Peter Parker's insults were always kind of playful. Miguel O'Hara like really wants to fucking get in there and get dirty with it. Damn.
He's just like, you're like, what do you? Especially because he's the one who turns into the Jeff Goldblum character. It's just funny that he's just like, yeah, I made it like this popular movie, which you should know something about because it's about an insect who sucks. Why are you?
My main takeaway of issue 1 is that Miguel O'Hara is an asshole, but like just a mean asshole to his bosses and people who deserve it. Yeah.
He's definitely a Peter David protagonist. Like having read a bunch of X Factor and like, yeah, this is a lot of Madrox. He's just like constantly quipping, won't shut up. Acts like he's a detective, constant. Even though he's not a detective. You're like, okay, but that's not your job, right?
So this leads us to go ahead.
I'm going to steal something from one of my favorite podcasts celebrating its 10th anniversary this month. It's called The Box Office Game. And it's Your Stupid Minds celebrating your 10th anniversary starring Chris. Congratulations. No, this was the 4th best-selling comic of 1992, issue 1 we just read. What are the
I had a copy.
Of course you did. What are the other 3? We've covered 2 of them on this show in the past. Do you need hints? That's usually what
X-Men #1.
No, not 1992.
No. Shit.
Okay. One of them is the death of a famous super character.
I was going to say, there's a big death in 92. I'm trying to think what it is.
Was that Superman? No, Superman was later, wasn't it?
No, ding, ding, ding.
I was going to say, I think it's
comic of the year was Superman 75.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great.
The next, number 2, it represented, I believe, a big image departure because we're losing our image artist at this time.
So would it be Spawn #1?
No.
Oh.
We just covered
Savage Dragon?
No, we just covered that artist in our April Fool's Day episode with Nick.
Youngblood.
Wildcats #1.
Oh,
Wildcats!
God. Wildcats. Who could forget? They had a cartoon show.
Yeah, and a Super Nintendo game. And then this is the first, and then number 3, the one that was just added 2099, was the character who just had a new movie with Tom Hardy, directed by Gollum.
So Carnage.
Venom, Lethal Protector #1.
Yeah, so yeah, it is that one.
Yeah.
Venom, Lethal Protector. We read that, right?
Yeah.
I think we did.
And that was the number 3 selling comic of that year.
Mm-hmm. And this was
Seems
number 4.
Weird. I'd put this higher than that for sure. All right.
This might be the best of those 3.
I think it might be. Yeah. Death of Superman was fine, I guess, for what it was.
It was
all
okay.
right.
Doomsday was
back-
nothing.
All right, back to the story here. So this explosion has happened.
Remember
Aaron,
that Supergirl clone? What was that about?
I don't remember at all. I'm just guessing that it was probably fine. I don't know. I don't remember hating it like I hated some of the other comics that we read that were big. So I'm just like, I'm sure it was fine. All right. So stuff is exploding. Aaron is like falling off the building. There's like a little tussle or whatever between them. Miguel tries to save Aaron, but I really like this scene as well. He's like holding on tight, and Aaron is just freaking out at this monster that's trying to save his life. And he's like, "Oh my God, you're ripping my arm off." And Miguel's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just trying to help you. Come claw up. Why are you squirming so much?" And Aaron is just like freaking out. And he's like, and he falls and he dies. And it's not until afterwards that Miguel realizes he's got like talons coming out of his fingers and that he had them stabbed into the other guy's arm. I thought that was brutal as hell. And I thought it was a kind of a nice reveal of like, shit, I got some fucking spider powers. That sucks.
Yeah. It is kind of cool, the fact that he is like kind of a monster in the first few issues, in a way that like most Marvel heroes, they're, because you kind of, he gets it under control later, and he's, can be Miguel, but at the first he just seems like, oh, he's like he is something out of a movie where he's just going to be like a monster man from now on. But then cops show up and are like, hey, somebody blew up this lab and threw that guy out a window.
And he's got talons on his feet too, and he starts climbing down this building to get out of there. Then
it seems like he wanted to kill himself, but then he realizes he doesn't, and then he grabs onto the side of the building.
I didn't even pick up on that. All right. I'm good at reading comics, I promise. So then Thor shows up, and I got real excited. I was like, oh, dang, Thor 2099 is going to be here? It is not Thor. It is like some dude who is a follower of Thor who's showing up to say, repent, tyrants of Alchemax. Thor is coming back to smite down the frost giants of industry. Which really made me laugh. I like that a lot.
That's such a cool connection. Also, I think it's tying into like the Age of Heroes, which is our modern Marvel comics, whatever, blah 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 blah. But it's people are like, Thor is coming back. You're the herald of Thor, and I like that. I think that's cool. I think that's a cool like way to tie in these two eras, and like the fact that like he's aware of Spider-Man, and I think somebody drew Spider-Man. They thought he was cool. That's enough for me to be like, okay, that's a good enough connection.
Yeah,
and it's just like some dude with a glider who like there's a pretty like blatant cartoon face that this guy makes as well, which I was like, oh, this guy's not Thor. Okay, cool.
Thor generally doesn't have those big cartoony expressions.
Yeah, and that really nice big glider. Miguel like jumps onto the glider with him and rides him to safety, and this guy is excited to see Spider-Man. He's like, oh, one of the legendary allies of Thor. Oh my God. But the poor guy's
he's
glider.
A regular kite man.
The poor guy's glider gets all ripped up by the time they land, and he's like, "Nah, man, Spider-Man, you can just have it. Spider-Man should always have a mask." And it's like, okay, cool. So then we have, who is this? Tyler Stone is on the phone or like hologram or whatever. Although we don't see the guy.
Yeah, this is the guy I referenced last episode that I wasn't sure if he was going to be in this book or not. Tiger Wilde.
Tiger Wilde. What a name. I don't think his name comes up again in these 6 issues that we read. But something about like an assassin in Latveria and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ooh, are we going to get Dr. Doom in this comic if we're mentioning Latveria? Okay.
One page, yes.
Yeah.
Doom 2099 is the real Doom. Like he's not like a descendant or.
Is that it? Oh,
yeah.
damn.
So it is the best 2099 book. Although Spider-Man 2099 is fine, as I recall. It's the best though because it's basically he goes back to Latveria and it's like he doesn't remember what happened. It's not clear, and like so basically they're like, okay, but how can you prove you're Dr. Doom and not a Doom bot? Or like some time traveling guy or anything like that. And he's like, look, I'm just Doom. I'll show you. And then like nobody believes him. And that Tiger Wilde guy beats him up. So he has to like take his country back and like, kind of show that he is Doom kind of through force of will. It's the best 2099
That sounds
book.
Cool.
That does sound cool. Yeah, he only has an appearance later here, but it was effective, I thought.
I like
For now.
the Stanley Steve Ditko reference where he's like, I met the original Spider-Man in one of his first adventures. Like, oh yeah, I remember. You captured Flash Thompson.
I like. How do you know it was one of his first adventures? Why is that detail important to you, dude? Why do you care about his timeline? All right.
He's like, even though I wasn't one of his main enemies, we did fight that one time.
When he was just starting out. Like, yeah, that crazy kid.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I kept up with, like, who is this kid? He's only had 3 adventures.
Yep. I thought he was a high school student from Queens, but I must have been wrong.
So we get a guy named Venture who shows up, who looks like a bounty hunter type.
He looks like
I don't
the
know.
cowboy character from Mortal Kombat 11, whose name I don't know.
Sure.
Carrick Bane. I don't know. He also looks like the robot character from Clone Wars cartoon also. Cad Bane.
Yeah, he's got some robot bits to him. He's got some guns. You know, he just looks like a future bounty hunter, I thought. It seems like he knows some stuff about science as well here, which cool.
Yeah, he's got the Batman like image scanner of like, oh, there were 2 forms here, and one fell down and then climbed up the side of the wall, and they're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, we gotta figure out who this is and go find this guy. So he's on the hunt for somebody who can climb walls. And then Miguel wakes up, and Miguel has been like sleeping forever. His talons retract when he goes to like touch his own skin. So he's like, okay, that must be like a reflex. Maybe I can eventually control this.
Yeah, he does make a joke. He's like, this would make using the bathroom or picking my nose very painful.
I agree. His
brother
Gabe.
David thought this out. It's like, people are gonna ask, like, how does he shit? How does he pick his nose?
It's important. That's just what Miguel. That's what he thinks about. I don't know.
Yeah.
His brother Gabe calls and says he's coming right over, and he's like, "Oh shit, no." Miguel realizes he needs some better clothes if he's gonna do like Spider-Man stuff. And he finds a Death's Head costume that he made out of unstable molecules fabric for the Day of the Dead festival in Mexico, because he knew it was going to be kind of wild. So he made some unstable molecules clothes out of it.
Sure.
Well, you don't want your clothes to get ripped up when you're at Bonnaroo or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
But I like that in this future, he's like, fuck, my body is ripping up all my clothes. I got to find something. One of my outfits has got to have unstable molecules. I guess I'm using this one.
Yep. It's good that it had to be kind of nice and decorative for the festival, because it works out.
This reminds me, Rick Leonardi also contributed to the black suit Spider-Man design.
Which
you can see here.
Okay. It does have some remnants of that for sure.
It is very similar. It's funny that everyone is like calls it black. I'm like, it doesn't look black. It looks blue.
Yeah, it looks blue and red.
Very blue.
Like I know like comic coloring can make it hard, but like Venom looks black. I mean, this does not look black.
Yeah, this doesn't look black. Lila, his holographic assistant, asks if some different hologram versions of herself would help for some reason. There's like a punk version, a butler version, and there's an Aunt May who's like a real doting and sweet, and Miguel is like, kill that one now.
She's like, oh, I worry about your health, and he's like, no, get out of here.
Get it out. No, thank you.
She looks. We haven't mentioned Lila looks like Marilyn Monroe for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Marilyn Monroe. I don't know why. Does Miguel love a character from 150 years earlier? Sure.
I guess. I mean,
maybe it was the default and he never changed it.
I mean, if people are wearing her dress to the Met Gala in 2022, is it so unreal that in 70 years people are still making their holograms look like her? It's weird.
Yeah, we are closer to 2099 right now than we were to when this comic released, 1992.
Don't check that.
That's not true at all. Don't check it out. But we are closer to 1992 than we were when Spider-Man first appeared in 1963.
Wow.
That's also not true. Okay.
What?
It's close.
Chris is like, no, that's not right. We're 59 years away from that. That would put us to what, like 2091? We are close. We're
We're very close.
We're still 77 years away from 20.
All right, it doesn't matter. So the brother comes over and Miguel is like, yeah, I beat that rapture addiction, no problem. I don't know how did his brother even know he was on the Rapture? That seems very fast.
Because the fiance told him.
Yes.
Because he hasn't been
So
talking to his fiance.
Ooh, what have they been talking about?
They did fool around, didn't they?
They did. We learned that
They
later.
were a couple in the past.
Yep.
There's a lot. There's a very dense back history Miguel's got.
There's some stuff happening. We're gonna learn all about this
Gabe
brother.
is a bit of a Lothario. We'll learn about that later.
Gabe is, yeah. So Miguel sees Venture approaching though, and he's like, "Okay, brother, you got to get out of here. Watch your back. Be safe." Miguel says, "I got to get out of here too." He attaches some of that glider material to his costume, and it looks kind of shitty, but kind of great also. And it barely works, kind of. And he jumps down and like glides down, and he attacks Venture, leading into the next issue.
More Steve Ditko, Stan Lee stuff. The web armpits are back.
Yes.
It's a page out of the Scarlet Spider ripped up sweatshirt. Look.
Yeah.
But they're like not perfect, you know. They're very ratty, so it probably is a lot easier to draw all the lines in there. I'm guessing. Plus, there's no lines on the costume, which of course is like a brilliant design, so that you don't have to draw them all.
Yeah, it's just got kind of the Death's Head sort of red logo and then some just sort of racing stripes, and that's about it.
So Miguel, we kind of jump back to the present for a second. Well, we get a reminder that Miguel is telling all of this to Lila as like a framing device. And Venture, they're fighting for a little while. Venture is able to numb Spider-Man's arm with one of his weapons here, and so Spider-Man, you know, he's not doing too well. There's another group of Thor's followers here, and they really like Spider-Man. And like one guy goes to help Venture. One guy goes to help Spider-Man, and Venture kills him. I didn't expect that. Didn't expect some murder. He's got a line later when he's like, "Ah, man, it's bad enough you made me kill people to follow you, but now you're making me blast through this poor innocent machinery."
Yeah.
I like
This
that
book
line.
is definitely, it's not rated R, but it's definitely a hard PG-13 where you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like there are people dropping dead, including people that, I mean, I guess that jerk who tried to sabotage him fell off a building in the first issue. But Spider-Man's body count is going to climb here pretty quickly too.
So we have like a little chase bit. Miguel flies by Gabe for a second, and Gabe is like, "Oh, I wonder if that was, I don't know." Miguel, I like this scene a lot. It's so stupid. Miguel like passes through his home and like busts out a window or something, and he says, "Hey, Lila, you need to help me. I need you to tell Venture there was a horrible man in black, and he went through there. Okay, Lila, good girl." And she repeats the whole thing, including "Okay, Lila, good girl," which is such a silly gag, but it works every time on me. I love it.
Yeah, which fortunately Venture was like already running past. He wasn't like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. He was like, "All right, good info. I'm out of here."
No time to hear the end of his sentence.
Gabe heads back to Miguel's place, and he sees all the wreckage, and he starts asking Lila some questions about what's going on. He kind of puts two and two together here. I think at this point he basically knows that Miguel is Spider-Man. We get Venture. Oh yeah, and then they're like fighting for a little while. Miguel kind of circles around for a bit and is able to get the drop on Venture again, and it's working okay for a little while. But Venture then like totally beats him up and captures him, and like some cocoony kind of business. And he phones back to the boss, Tyler Stone. That's his name, right? I feel like I sometimes kept forgetting his name. Tyler Stone.
Tyler Stone and Tiger Wilde are very similar in my head.
Yeah, they are similar.
Tiger Wilde doesn't even come up again. We don't got to worry about him. No tigers. Does he? Did I miss him?
No, I think I know I know a podcaster or a PC gamer writer named Tyler Wilde. So
named Tiger.
So
Tyler Wilde.
Tyler Wilde.
So then with the like WYLDE, kind of the way that Tiger Wilde spells his. So
isn't there also a tiger stone that like the white tiger gets its powers from?
Probably.
Or something?
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's
got to be.
There's no white tiger 2099 that I'm aware of.
Tyler Stone is just, to me, he reminds me so much of the Batman Beyond season 1, like Lex Luthor villain. Like he's just that guy.
Like Derek, whatever his name is. Derek
Yeah, the guy who
Powers.
turns into the green melty guy
You're
by
right.
the
This
end
is
of Batman Beyond.
this is very very similar to Batman Beyond.
Yeah, it's a lot of Batman Beyond in this book, even to the like, oh, what if there is like cool new cyberpunk versions of all your favorite characters?
Yeah,
I think Rick
I
Leonardi
expect him
did
to.
Batman Beyond stuff as well.
Did he really? I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
it. I'd love to see Miguel go to like a dance club and they just show him like in 4 dance poses with like a different like filter color over each one to indicate light motion. Because that's what
Hell
Batman
yeah.
Beyond did a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta cut some corners. Gotta cut some corners somewhere.
So
We should do Batman Beyond for the show.
we should do that at some
now.
point. Yeah.
Just that for April Fool's
so-
like joke. We're not doing a comic. We're just doing a good TV show.
We're just watching cartoons.
Hey, that's okay sometimes.
Remember the one where they take the Bane venom instead of steroids?
No.
It seems bad.
that?
Seems like it's going to do long-term damage to you to do the Bane venom.
I mean, like this book where you take this drug one time and you're hooked and it's done long-term damage.
Yeah, it's just like your body is going to be permanently destroyed. Anyway, back to
So Venture calls his boss Tyler Stowe and says, "I got him." Hey, his boss is like, "You know what I really want to know? How was he climbing those walls? I think it was suction cups." And Miguel says, "Wrong. I sliced free," and he slices free, and he beats up Venture some more.
He really gets a lot of mileage out of his little foot claws. He really surprises Venture like 2 or 3 times where he's like, "I have foot claws." Or he's like, "Why am I bleeding?"
There's not a lot of characters with foot claws out there. I can think of Spider-Man 2099 and I can think of X-23, and that's it.
Yeah, X-23 is the only one I can think of.
There's a James Bond villain in From Russia with Love. She's got a knife that comes out of her shoe.
That's similar. I'm okay with that. A shoe knife.
I'm glad you said shoe.
So
any of the things you could have said after a knife that comes out of her.
All right. So
still early James Bond. It didn't get that bad.
So Miguel slices free, and he has like web that's coming out of his wrists, and that's why I don't think we mentioned it. His arm was itching kind of earlier, and his web helps him a little bit. He doesn't like. I feel like I never see him web slinging around in these issues. Maybe he learns that later.
I guess he will, but here's where young Sam Raimi, already like 30 years old, but whatever.
Already like, Dark Man.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sucker Proxy. He's like, yes.
Yep. Well, he's making Dark Man or Hudsucker Proxy, one of those movies right now.
Yeah, this does lead. Miguel has a lot of jokes about like, at least it's not coming out of my butt. At least I'm not eating flies, that kind of stuff. But he does recognize that he is like kind of turning more and more into a monster here, which I do like that.
Spoiler alert for Doctor Strange 2, they do mention spider webs coming out of Spider-Man's butt. So directed by Sam Raimi. So.
Man.
Well. Look
now I can't watch it. That's what I was gonna go see it for. Thanks a lot, man.
I assume there's like a special feature where they're like, "What comics influenced you?" He's like, "Spider-Man 2099 number 3."
Very specifically.
There's that one Doctor Strange issue where Clea sleeps with Ben Franklin. That one.
So yes, Miguel uses his spider foot claws to kick the other guy in the leg. He short circuits his machinery. There's a magnetic gun that slams into his back and helps. It's a fun little adventure fight business. Miguel wins. Then he heads home, finishes telling Lila the story where he like runs away from home for a few days just to figure out what he should do. And then he's back and we're caught up with the present. And then Tyler Stone is at the door. Dun, dun, dun. What a cliffhanger.
And he's like, "I'd like to talk to you about Spider-Man," which is a fake out because he's like that criminal that we're looking for, not you.
Yes, I need to talk to you about Spider-Man. Although we don't go directly to that in the next issue. We go to Miguel's brother, Gabe O'Hara, who is trying to get laid in his car with the latest woman that he's fallen in love with, named Casey Nash. And some future samurai-looking dude shows up, and he's got a big sword, and he calls out Casey Nash by name, and is like, "All right, time to take you." He like kidnaps her, and Gabe O'Hara is just like powerless to do anything about it.
He talks like Mantis from the Avengers, where he's like, "This one will deal with you."
Yes.
Like
Yes.
he doesn't have regular pronouns. He just says this one, or
This
I
one.
guess robots do that too. But yeah, that's Mantis is the Marvel character I think of that does that.
Yeah. He did rip up Gabe's car, like completely remove the top off of it. So now Gabe just has a convertible for the rest of the series, I guess.
Tell Cyclops I gave him a convertible.
So then back at Miguel's home, so Tyler Stone has this big sergeant dude with him as well who like grabs Miguel, but Tyler says, "No, put him down, put him down." Lila, I love this scene at all. Lila offers Tyler Stone the blood of widows and orphans, since that's what Miguel is always saying he drinks, but they don't have any in the fridge, so maybe some coffee. I like that joke a lot. I like that. Tyler has his bodyguards with him because of this Spider-Man character that's out there, and he doesn't know if this guy's out to kill him, but he is here to extend like a handshake to Miguel and say that they want to let bygones be bygones. And then he offers him some rapture, and he's like, "Yeah, come back and work for me." And Miguel freaks out and says, "Look what your fucking rapture did to me. I tried to shake it and I ended up with talons and fangs, and I'm admitting it. I'm Spider-Man." But actually, that was just a dream. He just kind of like has a little moment. I thought it was very effective. For a second, I was like, I don't know where this canon is going. Is he really admitting that he is Spider-Man right now, and we're just going to go from here? But that's not what happened.
That was a good fake out.
It was a good fake out.
Because we don't have like an established premise for long enough to be like, well, of course he can't throw away his job at Alchemax. Like he already quit first issue.
Yeah. But yeah, that was all just a dream. He kind of flashes back, and Tyler Stone is offering him the rapture, but he doesn't take it. Tyler leaves and says, "Yeah, come back to work. We'll do it your way."
He does like pocket it. He's like, I'll do it later. Like he doesn't say no to it because he wants to like make Tyler think he's still a drug addict.
Yeah. That's smart job, Miguel. Yeah, and then Tyler leaves and says, "We'll do things your way. We will not experiment on humans anymore." Aaron was obviously rushing things to try and sabotage the project, and Miguel's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Yeah, don't you realize Aaron was Spider-Man? Duh." And he leaves. I'm like, "Oh, you know what? That's a pretty good twist. If they think this dead guy is just like disappeared because he's Spider-Man."
Right, but
I'm okay with that.
Miguel is like, wait a minute, that means they didn't find Aaron's body like at the bottom of the, which maybe he was just like completely pulverized because he fell off the top of a skyscraper. But it's it's just kind of like, so they don't know that guy's dead.
And did they have like really no cameras that recorded what was going on in that lab? I don't know.
I guess once you're like okay, I'm going to do something illegal, the cameras turn off.
So now we get future Doctor Doom, baby, just one page, but he's watching a TV screen with screens of Spider-Man, and he's like, "Dang, this can't be a coincidence. I'm back. Spider-Man's back. I feel like there's something to this." And that's it. And I loved it. This was my favorite. This is my favorite panel in the whole thing. I was just happy to see Doctor Doom.
I smell a crossover eventually in like 20 issues.
And this really, I also was thinking like, dang, in any other Spider-Man comic, this could have been a dude in a shadow. But they were like, nah, let's just let you know. This is Doctor Doom. It's fine.
I think, there's already two dudes in the shadows because is it this issue where we already have Tiger Wild.
Tiger Wild technically wasn't. Hold on. Tiger Wild was not a dude in the shadow. Tiger Wild was a dude on a screen that was not facing the reader. That's all.
Yes.
That's very specific.
I feel that fits the.
It does. It fits the same genre, but this is the future
dude
version
on
of
a
that,
screen
okay?
not facing the reader.
Because then there's the other guy who's like, "You failed."
So we'll meet him later. We haven't seen him yet, but there is a dude in the shadows coming up. So we get dude in the shadows future version, and we get dude in the shadows classic. So we'll get to all that. All right, where are we here? So
Gabe goes to Miguel and is like, "You got to help me."
Oh yeah, they spend some time talking about. Oh, hold on, we almost skipped over this. Miguel learns to retract his talent. It's great. Then he also tells Lila for a second, he's like, "Oh, I got to burn this suit before somebody finds it, but I can't burn it because it's made of unstable molecules, and that's the whole point of it." which I also really appreciated, how difficult it is to get rid of unstable molecules clothes.
Throw it in the river.
Yeah, just like, yeah, put it somewhere. Put it in a trash can. It's fine. Yeah, so Gabe then picks up Miguel. They're driving around in his new convertible, and they talk about all these women that Gabe has dated. And but no, this one's special, I promise. And he's like super into all this hippie stuff that these women are pushing onto him. And he's like, no, this one's different. This girl got kidnapped by some dude with a sword. Miguel's like, oh shit, I guess that's kind of important. Then Miguel like later just kind of runs into the girl. She's running away from Sword Guy because she's like escaped, and she tells him like, oh yeah, the people you work for are trying to hunt me down to experiment on me just because I have a record.
Yeah, it seems like they haven't stopped the human experiments like they said they would. I don't understand.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that as well.
I don't know. It's almost like that stone lied to him.
Almost. So then we get Miguel. I almost said Peter Parker right there. I had to like stop myself. We get Miguel because this next scene is all about great power and great responsibility. He almost doesn't want to help, but it's like, oh no, wrong. With great power comes great guilt. Interesting. This is Peter David's thesis on Spider-Man, I guess.
I do appreciate that they use the actual not great power comes great responsibility. It's the great power must come great responsibility, which is the actual quote, which is first used in a movie you haven't watched yet, Kia.
Oh, dang. Okay, I'll watch it. I'll watch it soon. I promise. I promise.
The Batman?
Yeah, it's used in the Batman. Yep, and it's also in Mortal Kombat. Weirdly. It's in every direct movie that premiered on HBO Max this past year. It's in Dune. It's in
Space Jam.
Yep, it's in all of them. It's really weird that HBO Max ripped that from Spider-Man. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron James does have great power and great responsibility, so it makes sense.
But it was weird that his son said that to him. But yeah, that's
story.
Okay. So
you have to say Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny dies in that movie.
Yeah, I heard.
He dies and he says, "That's all, folks," and it closes his eyes and it pans up and Bugs is dead.
Wait, what movie is this?
That actually is real, not the great power, great responsibility. But Bugs Bunny does die. He dies to make the final shot. And Zendaya, who plays Lola Bunny, she's like, Bugs. And he goes, "That's all, folks." And he closes his eye, and then the camera pans away. And that's the end of the movie.
And that's
just Bugs being dramatic. If you know Bugs Bunny, you know he's not dead. Don't worry.
He's permanently dead. I saw his little...
It's canon.
Yeah, it's like the weasels in Roger Rabbit. I saw his ghostly form float away.
Oh, no. Shit. All right.
He's dead.
That's too bad. He decides he's got to change into his Spider-Man clothes, and he gets into a mailing booth, which is the only place.
This would be like getting into an Amazon delivery truck and being like, perfect.
I'll just mail my clothes to myself in this mailing booth while I change into my Spider-Man clothes, and then when I got home, I got my clothes. Great, perfect plan.
It's just so funny because it's like we have this now. Like you could literally do this if you were a superhero.
You could Uber Eat your food home. Like if you worked at McDonald's, you could throw your clothes in a McDonald's bag and Uber Eats it to your house.
Yeah, I mean we have just Amazon delivery vans all over the streets. You could just be like, oh, I'm just gonna spiderweb this package to myself and it'll get delivered to myself somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's really clever. It's really cool. I like that. It's the future.
So yeah.
Although in today's day, you need like a box. They wouldn't just, they're not just going to take your loose clothes.
Well, he probably bought a box that was really pricey there, like at the UPS store.
It's not fair. It's way too much of a markup on box. I'm not okay with it.
So some of my friends read comics for the hard-hitting issues. UPS store charges too much.
Too much. This is a serious business. So he attacks the samurai guy. His name is the Specialist. It was on the cover of the comic as well. And that is honestly one of the worst names I have ever heard for just like a random one-shot villain.
And he's like a samurai. Give him like some kind of samurai-related name. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, the Specialist? Oh, all right. So
Lame.
He instantly gets the upper hand in this fight, and he beats up Spider-Man. And the cliffhanger is he's going to rip Spider-Man's mask off. Next issue, oh man, this is my favorite cover. It's a bunch of cops, and one of them is yelling, "You've made fools of the public eye for the last time." I love that that's on the cover.
Comma wall crawler.
It just tickled me.
You forgot comma wall crawler. TM.
You're right. I think public eye also had TM with it.
It does.
I don't know. There's just something about it I really love. Tyler Stone sends some people to make sure that the fight goes well and that Spider-Man does not die. They are trying to capture him. Casey, meanwhile, what was her name? Casey Nash,
yeah.
the prisoner / girlfriend of his brother, is feeling guilty for leaving Spider-Man behind, so she runs back to help. We have Gabe now, and his job is like doing some VR stuff, like he's putting together a VR experience. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, he's doing some kind of Dances with Wolves, like big, Native American scene on VR, and then it's like, I'm just doing this job.
I think he is directing the VR adaptation of Dances with Wolves in 2099, because I feel like we're heading that way. Lots of VR experience recreation.
Oh, that's gonna be great. I'm gonna watch Avatar on my Oculus. It's gonna be amazing.
Well, I mean, Dances with Wolves was what, like 91? Yeah. 1990, 1991?
Ooh.
Yeah, it was right around that period.
So they're late on the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah,
honestly, he should have gotten on this earlier.
So this
Gabe.
would be like if somebody was making a VR experience of Parasite to us.
Yeah, sure.
A Parasite.
Sure.
Of like a Best Picture winner like 2 years ago. That's what
I know. Oh, I thought you meant. I thought you were going to say like 100 years ago, like Joan of Arc or like Dr. Mabuse or something.
This is the contemporary angle of like 2 years ago in our time, a Best Picture winner.
You're talking about in the context of the story, not in 2099. Because, like I said, for us, it would be like we're like, oh, this 1910 movie was pretty great.
We loved it.
Yeah. So this VR thing gets interrupted because he gets a phone call, and he's really hoping it's Casey. It is not. It is Miguel's fiance, Dana. And she comes over. They like kiss because they used to have a thing, but not anymore. It was just weird. Like a polite friend kiss. I don't know.
It's weird because Gabe is like, my brother sucks and you shouldn't be with him and all of this. And she kisses him and is like, we used to be together and that's why I love Miguel. And you're like,
yeah, you got to not hold that against us. You got to not let that affect our relationship.
Do you think this was written in the Marvel method and Rick Leonardi just drew people smooching and then Peter was like, fuck, I'm not writing anything over this. I'm just going to leave it.
I doubt it.
I don't know.
But I don't know.
Maybe it comes up later. Who knows? I do kind of get the feeling that we're up for like a sibling girlfriend switch, I think, because like Spider-Man is doing a bunch of heroics now with this Casey girl, and I don't know.
I think it's Harry Osborn is dating Mary Jane, Peter is dating Gwen kind of situation where they're not right for you, kind of set up.
Yeah, Gabe is definitely the closest to like the Harry Osborn analog, because I was trying to like see if like who makes sense. Casey's still around though. I've been reading some of Peter David's like 2014, 2015, 2099, and Casey's shown up a few times. So
really, okay,
there you have it. I mean, she is like the adventure girlfriend, so it makes more like his girlfriend at the beginning is like the Batman Beyond girlfriend, where she's basically just like, I'm so worried. That's her whole character, where it's like, well, there's really nowhere for this to go, so it's kind of a boring.
She's in the Black Catwoman kind of hero.
Yeah, something there.
Yeah, versus the just sitting at home being like, I was so worried that you were in danger fighting crime. Which is just not a good story vehicle for comic books.
So they, Gabe and Dana get to the fighting. I guess they're heading towards it as well. And Gabe doesn't recognize Casey or pretends not to, or she looks different enough that he legitimately doesn't recognize her. I wasn't sure what it was.
I think he's lying because he's with what's her name?
Dana, and he's trying to pretend like he's not involved with anyone.
Yes, I think that's
my guess.
Yeah. What's happening, but it is unclear.
So this fighting is going on. Spider-Man eventually gets the upper hand on the Specialist, and slits his throat, like straight up kills him, and then right.
We also had cut away a few times to more guys in the shadows, like watching the fight for like I guess Stark Fujiwaka or whatever it is. Like I guess Tony Stark has like a Japanese company, and they're like,
oh yeah, they
like a Wayland Yutani kind of situation.
Yeah,
something like that. Stark Fujikawa. I think.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, the specialist will destroy this new Alchemax guy, and then I guess he doesn't. He gets his throat slit.
Yep, too bad. And then the future cops shoot at him, and he like falls into a pit or something. He like falls far. Like he's got to be dead. This has to be the series finale.
Yeah, it's like that cutscene in the Maximum Carnage video game where you're blasted off the roof, and then there's like a cutscene of you like on the ground, like with broken ribs and everything.
So then straight into issue 6 here. We have some sleazeballs in the slums, and they're like shaking down a mom with her kid for protection money. And man, they are being really rude and like.
I was gonna say they go beyond just shaking down, because it's just like, oh, there's a way we can get rid of these debts. You're like, oh no, like they seem bad.
Yeah, they're like, would you prefer if we come to your home at night to take care of this and that kind of stuff? And it's like, oh my god. And they like the little girl tries to help, and they knock her away, and she lands in a pile of rubble. But guess who was under that pile of rubble, huh? Guess who's awake now and here to help? It's Spider-Man. Bam. And but he's
like he's barely alive. Yeah,
he's barely alive. He like is able to push the thugs away like out of instinct and like straight into a wall and knock them out.
Yeah, like.
But he's super hurt. The lady runs away. He takes the thugs' car. And it's like super primitive, only the most basic voice activated automatic driving system.
It's like this future golf cart where he like can't actually do all the crazy future things he wants to.
Yeah, the computer is just like sometimes responding to the things he says, and it's like, okay, at some point, I don't know where it sends him first, but he's like, oh, I need a hospital, and it's like, all right, taking you to the nearest hospital. Meanwhile, Tyler Stone fires the sergeant who had Spider-Man shot because he was like, I ordered non-lethal force, and you did it because Spider-Man hurt your kid the other day, which I don't remember when that happened. When did Spider-Man
it is in the first issue, yeah, when he's beating up the police running away.
Okay. So this is then when we see Tyler Stone reporting to his big boss. This is the main dude in the Shadow now, who I would say is the most classic dude in Shadow. He is familiar with the first Spider-Man, and he's interested in seeing this new one. And that's all we really know about him.
And so he's just like, you letting this new Spider-Man die is a huge failure. Like, you screwed this up, Stone. And he's like, it's not my fault. It's this cop who I fired, and I guess we're gonna have killed. I don't know what with prejudice means.
That the other guy does say like, you'll regret this. I'm gonna come back for you, or something like that. I hope we do see him come back as some sort of a villain. Casey is now monologuing a little bit, saying, okay, she's got to call in the reserves because Spider-Man saved her life, and she always repays her debts because she's a Lannister, I think. The car takes Spider-Man to this medical facility, but the bad guys have a tracker on it. They're like, oh, is it stopped here? And like, yeah, it's stopped. All right, let's deactivate. Let's go get him. He gets stitched up by a nice lady, Dr. Morrow. But Spider-Man's kind of rude to her, and he just like gets out of there. But he also recognizes that he's being rude.
Yeah. It turns out she's also a Thorite, where he's like, you don't dress like an idiot like those other Thorite people. She's like, well, not all of us are like that kind of believer, but it's kind of like this is, I guess, a kind of apocalyptic faith that people have now, that like Thor is going to come back and it's going to save us from all this like corporate bullshit.
I kind of like it. It's a nice little religion. And then this issue ends, so the soldiers come to get him. The car's been deactivated. He's got to run away on foot. They're not going to kill him, but they do want to really scare him. So there's like explosions and stuff happening. And then guess who swoops in and saves him? It's not who you expect. The Vulture. What? the Vulture, that's a bad guy. No, this is like a good guy version or something. I don't know. I guess if we kept reading, we would learn more. But that was the end of issue 6, and I gotta be honest. I kind of want to keep reading. I really like this. I don't know what it is about this. It has like a nice, just built a world really nicely, pretty much out of nothing, and it was cool. I dug it. It's fun to read. I don't know. What y'all think?
Yeah. Go ahead, Vince.
I don't love it. I don't love it. I like Miguel. I like the kind of world, but it's I don't know. It doesn't have much like Spider-Man to me. Like I'm trying to think like, and this is more of my expectations, but like when I have like a book called Spider-Man 2099, I expect it to be more like Elseworldsy. Like this is what Peter Parker would be like, or a Spider-Man type thing would be like in the future of 2099. I expect like similar like character plots and analogs or some more stronger connection. This just feels like a guy who's got like sharp powers and some spider webs in a future environment, and that's about it. But they're building a good cast at this point that again isn't Spider-Man analogs. Like we've got several different like lines of villains. We got lots of dudes in shadows. We got the brother who's kind of a douchebag who's gonna like create some conflict that makes sense, like both in Miguel's like superhero world and regular world. It's got a good build to it. I'm just not really into these kind of like early 90s like dystopia stories, so it doesn't fully work for me. But I will talk about what I do like the later Spider-Man 2099s in just a bit after Chris is done.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I liked it. It's a fun, and as I mentioned, I had the first issue, which I didn't buy like the month it came out, but there's back issues of it everywhere.
Oh, I've seen it in half-price books and stuff. Like I've seen this one.
Yeah, it had the red like foil cover. But I started reading it around like issue like 16 or 17. It was just like at our like CVS equivalent. This was before all pharmacies merged into each other. But yeah, I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, that's like such a low issue. Like I could conceivably read all of these. And I don't know if I read every single issue, but I was able to like catch up and like read the first arc, and then I read from like issue like 16 or 17. So I was like, oh, like I know all the characters, like I know all the stories, and it does do a good job of, at least in my opinion, it does a good job of kind of and like it reminds me a little bit. I mean, Spider Girl is more like Vince, you might like it better because it's more like just fan servicey to classic Spider-Man, where they're just like, hey, remember this like minor Spider-Man character? Here he is. And it's like Pat O'Leaf and Ron Frenz and these like very classic like Ditko-esque art, which I liked at the time. And I still think, those are good books. But this is a little different because it's like building its own world related to Spider-Man, but there's no like one-to-one like, oh, this is this. Like it is a completely its own thing. It's just that, okay, but what if we're just gonna have like this young arrogant guy kind of like reckon with the how he was shitty now that he has superpowers, and kind of see where that goes, and he's gonna meet like Spider-Man type characters, which I think is cool. And so I like it, and I like the dystopia that represents the world we live in right now. If I'll briefly plug, it won't be out for probably a month or two after this, but I'm going to be on a Games My Mom Found podcast talking about Perfect Dark.
Nice.
And so even more corporate espionage and like secrets and gene splicing and all this like craziness. So it's, I don't know, I enjoy all of the like sci-fi-ness of it. And then it doesn't, it's able to do that instead of be like a Silver Age, super science. I think it works pretty well for what it is, which is, like you said at the beginning, Vince, like Stan Lee was like, we're going to make this. So, they kind of were like, well, we have to now.
Yeah.
This is like the best version of what it was going to be. Because like Ravage 2099, I don't think we'll ever cover. It stinks. It's a Stan Lee written book in like 1992, 1993.
I will say it didn't feel like the futureness was like over the top at any point. And I didn't even like think of this book as like a dystopia. I was like, yep, that's just the world.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like if anything that I mean, you're very right. It definitely is. The thing that I kept thinking of, and it's weird. Remember when we did Edge of Spider-Verse? There was that one futuristic Spider-Man comic that was so far removed from Spider-Man lore, and it was just like, what is this?
Right.
Who is this guy? And I think that, like, I remembered that because you were talking about like what you didn't like about it, Vince.
Yeah,
and I
even
was definitely
worse.
thinking about it while I was reading it, and it was like it does, like it is different, like it is out there, but there's just enough that connects back to it for me. I really went into it thinking I was gonna feel the way you did, Vince, and I don't know what it just like. It just hit me. Yeah, you know, I know exactly what it is. The number one thing for me, the most important character trait that Spider-Man has, is quipping while fighting, and this guy's got it in spades. So that, oh wow, hold on, I was curious and I looked back. I was looking up the that Spider-Verse comic. The Spider-Man in that world was named Aaron Aikman. Which Aaron is that? This Aaron? I don't think
No, that
it's
was
the same
Aaron
I think
Delgado.
it's a different name. Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, I liked that. I mean, like Spider-Man quips almost never make me laugh. But at the end of the first issue, when he's like, got to think of the perfect thing to say after and he attacks the cyborg guy, and he's like, "Hi."
Hi.
His thought bubble was like, "That probably wasn't it."
Yeah. But Vince, you said there was something you did want to mention that
So if you're looking for more Miguel O'Hara in Spider-Man 2099, this goes for 30-something more issues. And then he pops around like Exiles in the mid-2000s. Exiles was like a universe-hopping X-Men style book. He pops up there. But I read Peter David picked up Miguel O'Hara with the Spider-Verse event in like 2014. And Miguel got transported to present day Marvel Universe. So now he's a future man displaced in time. And something bad happened in his town, Nueva York, which I don't even think we said the name. And so he's trying to prevent a future.
I don't think the book even said that, did it?
I don't think they mentioned it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he's from
I don't
Nueva
think we
York.
know. Yeah, yeah.
But something bad happened in his future that he's trying to prevent in the past. And he ends up, there's a cool story where one arc where he messes up something and accidentally creates the Maestro universe, which Peter David also wrote, the George Perez, him, Future Imperfect. And so there's an arc in that universe with the Maestro, and they go back to that museum. And it's really cool because they've since added in like museum items that the Marvel Universe had created since 91. So like the hood is in there, like the hood's hood is in there that the Maestro uses to attack Miguel. It's just really fun and dumb. It's pretty cool. But like Venture shows back up. Venture comes through the portal to come to the present day. Casey comes back. The Captain America and Sorcerer Supreme of 2099 show up. It's very much like an easy, like in one ear, out the other book. Like you can read 6 issues in 30 minutes kind of thing. But it's pretty fun.
Because didn't they have Liz Allen started Alchemax?
Yeah, Allen Chemical became Alchemax. Yeah, exactly. And I think it merged with Max Modell's company, which I think was a little on the nose. But but for Alka and then Max. But
that's all right. I'm okay with that.
But they at least tried to make the handshake to show like Alchemax exists in the modern Marvel universe now when it didn't in 92.
Right.
Yeah. That handshake moment. But I like I said, overall liked it. I don't know if I'd ever go back and read the whole thing, but I don't know. Part of me is intrigued.
Peter David's such an easy writer, though. His books just like flow so nicely.
Yeah.
You could read this 30 issues in a weekend and just say like, "Yep, I read all of Spider-Man 2099."
I don't know. I don't think I could.
He does such a good job. If you read, the last 4 issues, they all end on cliffhangers.
Yeah,
like just it's such a reading month to month every 30 days. We're like, oh no, Tyler Stone knows he's Spider-Man, and you start the next issue, you're like, oh no, he doesn't.
Well, and I'm like, fuck, I want to see what the Vulture of 2099 looks like.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I want to know what he's all about. Is he with the Thor people?
Yeah, it's like Venture's gonna kill him. Like, oh no, he's gonna kill these Thor guys.
Yeah. And I'm sure the Vulture will be nothing, but there'll be some cool cliffhanger at the end of that issue. Be.
Well, I think he's probably gonna offer him to team up, and then he won't. Yeah. If I had to guess.
So I think we are ready to hop back into some Avengers. Oh man, we're finally getting to the Korvac factory here. It is we've been waiting for some Korvac action to hit.
Clearly, Korvac's been stealing all the heroes, right? That's what we know, right?
No, we were wrong. It was the
That would make
Collector.
more sense.
Okay. So all right. Well, maybe we'll get to the Korvac factory. We've been reading the Korvac Saga for a while, which is like little glimpses of Korvac all throughout. And we're getting to it. Right now, all the heroes have been like little by little just disappearing, poof, into thin air. And they finally track it down. They land on the ship of the Collector, who's kind of happy to see them. What's going on here? A fight breaks out. The Collector is ready to go. He like traps Thor's hammer in this lightning energy dimension thing, so he's like still holding onto it and he can't get it out. He uses some freezing gas to seal up Iron Man's joints and trap him in his armor.
Yeah, that was a classic where like Iron Man's like, I'll just cut off the oxygen with this gas, and he's like, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. You know, your armor is frozen. We're just like, it's like playing with a 3-year-old where they're like, actually, I have the power that cancels out whatever you said, so I can't be touched. You're like, okay, great, you win.
It's a lot of that. My favorite is when he throws a frisbee at the wasp and it's got like a mesh net on it or something.
Yeah.
It's like a flying disc, but it just looks like a frisbee with like a net dangling under it, and catches the wasp in there. And she's like, "This is no problem. Let me just bust out of here." And then it zaps her. And she just...
Yeah, she does zap him in the face once, and he kind of gets like annoyed, which is the most anyone like Thor and Iron Man are immediately incapacitated, and Wasp blasts Collector in the face, and he's like, "Oh, I'm surprised by this," but then he throws a little frisbee, and when she like zaps her way out, it shocks her into unconsciousness.
So then Hawkeye is the only one left, and he shoots his arrow at the Collector's weapon, and like he's like, blast you. And then he gets attacked by like a pterodactyl or something.
Collector says something like, "You're not even worth collecting. You don't even have any powers."
Yes. But the Collector then uses the power cosmic. Is this like, doesn't he have the Infinity Stone at this time, or no?
No, that's a later
that's
kind
later.
of creation.
So he does have like the power cosmic within him or something. And he's like, I'm gonna get you. And he's charging up, and Hawkeye shoots him with an arrow that like, gives him an electric shock or something, and just knocks him out, and that's it. And he saved the day. It's a very like Scooby-Doo ending where everyone wakes up and they're like, "All right, Collector, you've got a lot of explaining to do." It threw me for a loop here, and I was like, "All right, what is the Korvac Saga even doing? What is happening right now?" So the Collector is doing his explaining, talking about how he saw Thanos and he like kept watching Thanos, and he wanted to just get a little like sample of the humans, so he started collecting stuff. Is that what did he want? What did the Collector? What was this? I don't know. I genuinely am like, all right.
Cool. I think it was just a way to say that he's like he's an elder and he's got a shit ton of power, quite like this other elder that's got a lot of power.
Okay.
We'll cut to Korvac.
Okay.
That was enough for me to be like, oh, okay. So Korvac and Collector are on the similar power level, and I see Thanos there, so they're all three kind of in the same place. All right, got it.
Okay, I can buy that.
Because I know Thanos more than I know. I just see Collector. He's just kind of like a dude played by Benicio del Toro. I didn't realize he had these kind of powers. Or this intelligence.
I mean, apparently he doesn't, because he gets knocked out in an instant by Hawkeye.
That's just because he didn't want that. He didn't want that Pog. He didn't want that Yu-Gi-Oh card.
So, meanwhile, we do see Michael Korvac. He's holding his beloved Karina Walters, tears in her eyes. He sensed betrayal out of her, but now he only sees love. And it's true. Her father sent her to be a spy. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Didn't he abduct her from like a fashion show or something?
Yes.
But that was the plan. That
Well,
was
Bill
all set in motion
Mantlo,
to make sure
fill-in
they
writer,
mate.
can't know that.
Is that what this is? I didn't even recognize it was a fill-in.
Everybody who did this issue is not anybody we've covered in the previous issues of the
Okay.
Korvac Saga.
It's very, you can tell it's very different. But yeah, she was sent to be a spy, but she's fallen in love with him. And as corny as that is, I was like, dang, we're moving now. This is some serious shit. Yeah, her dad sent her, and I'm like, who's her dad? And Korvac is like, yeah, I sense your dad. I sense him up there in the sky, and he like charges up, and we cut back to the Avengers, and the Collector just fucking explodes. Oh my god. Michael Korvac. And then we cut back to Michael Korvac. He's like, your dad's not going to be a problem anymore. Oh, shit. Collector's dead.
Well, all the Avengers are there like, we were supposed to fight this guy, right?
They were just like hanging out now. I don't even know what the plan was.
Case closed.
They're like, well,
Weird.
like we should probably fight the guy that zapped somebody from Earth that was in space just by thinking about it. I don't really want to do that. Okay.
Yeah, it is funny. Like they've almost gotten themselves in, especially because Jim Shooter's like the writer, but he's also like the editor in chief at the time. Where they're like, they almost have too many spinning plates because they're like, okay, but remember you guys lost your like priority access, and you've got that subplot with Guy Ritchie. And then you've also got the Collector, and then you've got like Ms. Marvel who helped you guys and is about to join the team.
Don't forget Two Gun Kid.
Yeah, Two Gun Kid not in this issue either. So you're just like, so what exactly are we going towards here? It's very like it keeps you on your toes because you're like, what is the plan?
It's like the show, the Lakers show Winning Time that I enjoy, but it also doesn't know who to focus on.
Yeah.
I'm excited for however this thing's gonna finish, though. I feel like as much as this was obviously a fill-in, that was like the Collector exploding got my attention. That's all it takes. Just to, writers, if you're not sure what to do, just explode a character. Why not? Doesn't matter what story it is. Just explode somebody, and I'll be into it.
It is funny, like it's the easiest way to like give something some stakes. And I feel like, that the secret sauce and stuff like Annihilation is like, yeah, you can just kill these characters. Like, nobody cares. And I know, like, in the next, 10 years, they retconned all of that away and they put all the toys back in the box. But at the time, it's like, yeah, like, you don't know who these characters are. Like, even I, someone who's read way too many comics, I'm like Star-Lord? Who the hell is this? Like these were so obscure, and so when like Moondragon or whoever is killed off, or Quasar, you're like, oh, I guess this guy's pretty serious this time. They're killing Quasar.
Moondragon's the character that turns to a dragon that I forget we've seen every time I see her, right?
Yeah, well, she's in next issue of Avengers because she was one of the collectors. She was one of the collectors, captured people, but she doesn't have a line.
I'm like, who is this person? And Chris is gonna be like, we told you last episode it's Moondragon. You can quote me on that's what's going to happen. We've got 3 issues left of the Korvac Saga, by the way.
We probably, if they were going to release a Korvac Saga collection, they really should have just released, select panels from a lot of this stuff.
That's what they did for the Clone Saga. They just put, all the 3-page Ben Reilly calling Aunt May things from, 7 different issues just in one little compilation. I'm like, okay,
it would have worked. Don't get me wrong, I've been enjoying reading these comics, but you don't need a 13-issue Korvac Saga collection.
Yeah, I think it's fun, but yeah, I get what you mean. It would be the Dark Phoenix Saga being 12 issues, but literally 7 issues of it being and we're in the Savage Land now. We're like, okay, this isn't really moving the Dark Phoenix issue forward, is it?
Is the Hobgoblin Saga of the 80s, is that deal with the Hobgoblin every issue, or does it get derailed?
Yeah, that's similar because the Hobgoblin, he has a couple of story arcs where then they kind of take him off the table for 12 issues, but then he'll be right back. So it's similar in that he becomes kind of the big bad of the book for a little while, but they don't want to actually, pull the. I mean, I think we've talked about. Have we ever done the Hobgoblin Lives 90s?
I don't think so. We've done some Roger Stern of that era, but I don't know if we actually did the Hobgoblin stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, we should probably do that at some point because it's a crazy story. That's the backstage stuff is kind of more interesting than the actual comics. But yeah, that's kind of like similar to Korvac, where Hobgoblin, you call it a saga, but it's like 3 issues where he does something, and then like 6 issues where he's just hanging out, like collecting his power. So that's kind of what Korvac has been doing.
I mentioned it once before when we were reading these. I do kind of like that about comics, like especially with a big team book with lots of loose threads. Like you never know which thread is going to get picked up from issue to issue, and there is something a little bit mysterious about that, as opposed to like a more modern comic when you're like, okay, the 6-issue series, we're getting to part 6 of this story. We know exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
There's something. It's a very just the open endedness is nice.
It is cool because, like, I mean, and again, I know I've shat on 2000s comics enough, but it is like there's something out of every Avengers story that's like, oh, that's surprising that you will never get out of a part 5 of 6 in a mid-aughts Marvel series where it's like they told you right in the title that this is part 5. And part 4 ended on a cliffhanger, so this is just going to be like treading water for an entire 20 pages of like, oh, what's Mary Jane Watson up to? We have to go see what this like character that isn't our perspective character is doing, so we can get them into the story and not tell you what was going on.
It's such a weird balance though, because like Hawkeye ain't done shit for several issues, and suddenly he's like the cool guy in this issue.
Well, yeah, he just came back to the team.
Right, which I mean, if it was like part 5 of 6, and you're like, why did Hawkeye suddenly have a moment when he's done nothing for the previous 4 parts of this thing? I would be irritated. But this, I'm like, Hawkeye got a chance to shine. Cool. And I think it's because like for the most part, like every adventure is pretty self-contained, or it's in 2 issues, like the stuff that they did with like the Bride of Ultron. But it's tripping over itself to get to the next story before it even resolves this story. So I like it though. Well, I'm having fun with this book.
Yeah. I think it's smart in a way because it's like, yeah, even if you don't know what the next story is, it's like famously they didn't know what Onslaught was going to be. They just thought it was cool that somebody punched out Juggernaut and said, that he was named Onslaught. Like you've got that like spinning sort of thing in the back of your head, like, we're dealing with, strife today, but what's Onslaught up to? Where the fans just kind of you build it up in your head, even though if they're not doing anything. Like Mr. Sinister was a good example of like that, where you didn't actually do anything in the comics for a long time.
This also just like works well for our format of like reading every 2 weeks or a month. Like I think if we read all the Korvac Saga in one episode, it'd be kind of.
Oh my god!
Like even if it was only 6 issues, we'd be like, or a 2-parter, we'd be like, I'm not feeling this. The fact that it was like delayed and meant to be read not in one sitting, I think works in its favor.
Yeah.
Compared to a Bendis book, which you can't read month to month without going back and reading all the issues.
You can read literally like 2 story arcs in the time of reading one of these issues. Next time we're reading Avengers 175. We're going up to 177, so real close to the end. 3 issues left. And then our main read is going to be, we're going to get away from superheroes for a little bit here. We are doing a Darwyn cookbook from, what is this, 2011? Is that right? Somewhere around that time?
That late? Was that early? I don't even know when Slayground came out. Let me look at that up.
2009. Darwyn Cooke did a series of graphic novels that were based on some old novels from what era?
60s and 70s. The one we're specifically is based on a 1971 book called Slayground.
Right, and it was called Slayground. The series was Richard Stark's Parker. Richard Stark was like the pseudonym of this author who wrote us a character called Parker. And now this is taking him into the graphic novel setting. And Slayground is supposedly a cool one where he has to get some guys in a frozen water park. And there's some like Home Alone traps and stuff in there. Vince, you recommended this.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I liked all these books. I mean, Darwyn Cooke, who did like DC The New Frontier, did some Catwoman that we haven't covered, passed away in 2016. Yeah, he just started doing these kind of original graphic novels, adapting these kind of noir-y books, Parker's just kind of like a tough guy. They made a Jason Statham movie with him. I want to say they made like another movie like in the 70s with the same character. But he's just the kind of guy. He's kind of quiet. But Slayground's a cool one. Just because they're all cool. Slayground's a little shorter. It's got a really cool pullout. It's a 4-pager because it takes place at a water park in the winter. It's frozen over. He's hiding from some goons or something. And they take a map, and it's got like a Home Alone map of like 4-page pull out. You're like, this is where I'm going to fight this person, this. And it's just a really cool thing. I hadn't seen it before. And it's, Darwyn Cooke's art, who, sadly passed away. And it's just cool. And it's also, it just looks good. Darwyn Cooke was a great ass artist.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be exciting. I've never read those. I remember you talking about them when they first came out. So I'm excited to check them out.
2013, by the way, was Slayground. It was the
2013. Okay. Cool. And Chris, what's going on with your stupid minds over there?
We just did an episode of the worst of 2022. Somehow we're already in the future. We covered a movie that came out January of this year called The King's Daughter, which has a very interesting production history in that it's got William Hurt, who's died. It's got Pierce Brosnan, and it's got the actress who played Claire in Resident Evil Escape from Raccoon City, or Welcome to Raccoon City, the last episode we did. So back-to-back episodes, but this was filmed in 2014 with a bunch of Chinese money, and then the Chinese star they had in it got in a bunch of tax trouble, and something fell apart, and 8 years later the movie released.
Is this where COVID came from? It's got to be.
Mermaids. Mermaids are the source of COVID because there's mermaids in this movie.
I see.
And congratulations on your 10-year. Congratulations on your 10-year anniversary, by the way.
Thank you. And we're gonna hit 200 this year if all things, knock on wood, go to plan. So it's pretty cool. 200 episodes, 10 years. We've wasted a lot of time doing this podcast.
Well, we're eventually going to hit the same thing over here. So we've wasted double.
We're at 178 right now, so we'll be hitting it within a year. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I don't waste as much time for this podcast. Oh, I guess reading comics sometimes can take an hour and a half.
It depends. It depends on the comic. But Vince, how's that was a game thing going?
Nah, nothing really cooking right now. I'm still trying to figure out what to do for our next episode. But yeah, go check out Sonic the Hedgehog, the 8-bit Game Gear version I've done, and some other videos. They're all really good. I did discover there was a 2099 game that got abandoned by Mindscape in the era. It was like Punisher 2099 or something. You fought Doom. It was like Doom's like America or whatever.
God, I was gonna say, how would that even be a game?
It was because there was the big Doom event. It looked like it was for PlayStation 1, and it was a 2D side scroller is what it was intended to be.
No way. Is it like Game Boy? That should be the level of development you guys should be doing for.
It was made by Mindscape, who I thought made like my Magic the Gathering games around that era. So I don't know.
Again, that's Game Boy level production to me. Make a 2099 game. Game Boy Color, maybe.
No, this is like Game Boy. This is like 1997. You maybe get a Super Game Boy background, and that's it. That's the kind of quality Chris is shooting for a 2099 game. Iron Man XO Man of War quality.
Exactly. That's exactly the quality I'm talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Nothing on the level of Wildcats. That's prestige stuff. Wildcats. I think they had a PlayStation 1 game too.
I think it's time to go to bed. It has been a fun episode. Vince, I love you.
Love you too.
Chris, I love you.
Shock you? I don't know if that works.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that. We mentioned it at the beginning. We mentioned it at the end. We did not mention how they're always like, shock this. What the shock?
It's like Frack from Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. It's just a substitute for cursing. I love it.
Great.
It's shocking.
Well,
great.
Glad we got it in there. And listener, we shock you as well. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye.